Greetings, folks. I thought that I would share a tarot reading with all of you to share some messages and some guidance as to what's coming through from the universe or a higher power or from the collective. I tend to think that the collective energy dictates what messages come through. So however you're feeling will affect the card that's pulled, whether it's something that you're feeling, something that you feel like everyone else is feeling. Whoever ends up watching this is who the card is meant for. So what message does the collective need to hear right now? What message does the collective need to hear right now? The first card that was pulled is the Rabbit. The Rabbit says, afraid of everything, overwhelmed, frozen. The rabbit loves to remind his friends that someday the eagle will swoop down and eat him. He talks and talks and talks about it so loudly, in fact, that one day the eagle hears and thanks him for the great idea. Rabbit energy is alive when we are scared, most often about the future, and we become our own worst enemy. We spin up a dust cloud of fear and then complain to others that we are lost. Notice your thoughts and words, O rabbit. They shape your destiny. When unbalanced, sensitive, problem solver, good listener. When out of balance, over explains, talks fast. To bring into balance, a day of silence. So anyone who had seen my IGTV had talked about being hopeful for the future. And instead of coming from a place of fear and scarcity and listening to and feeding into the fear and feeding into the anger, begin to think about how you hope the world looks after this and what you hope comes from this, whether it is basic human health care or basic income, universal income or universal health care, or more sustainable practices, and then looking back to see how you can start to change things within your life and heal things within yourself to then create that around you in your community and then in turn in the world around you. So look at why you're scared of the things that are coming up. Why is that fear invoked in you? Looking at the root of where that fear started, and it's not where we currently are. There's always something that triggers something from our past. So this fear of the pandemic and the unknown is triggered. Where were you hurt before, where you didn't know about something, or maybe you lost your job and something bad happened after that. To begin to look at where this original fear comes from and do the healing around that, and begin to think about what you want your life to look like after this. And again, not just for you, but for the greater good of all. So, very timely card. The next card is the Beaver. beaver is hard worker, loyal, tireless, family first. The beaver personality is a welcomed sight. These good-natured and dependable creatures have infinite love and enthusiasm for family and express it by the way of the earth element, providing a home, financial stability. Although a beaver doesn't usually initiate a project, once started, they'll work steadily for weeks, months, or years to see it through. The beaver card appears when the task at hand requires your long-term, steady effort. It can also signify that it's time for some karma yoga or selfless service. When in balance, happy, meaningful work. To bring it, or when out of balance, feels useless, worn out. To bring into balance, physical labor, selfless service. There are a couple things that come up from this. When in balance, happy, meaningful work. So again, this time, this space of the unknown, of this, like, people just tend to seem to have all this time to do things that they weren't able, or to get to things that they weren't able to get to before, or to connect with people. So taking some of this new time that we have and to think about your work. Do you feel like you're contributing to society in a meaningful way through your work? Do you think that, are you happy in the work that you do in your career, in your job? Or is it something that you loathe going into? And if you're not fully happy, how can you shift that? Either the perspective of not being happy to being grateful, or whatever that perspective shift can be. Or what can you change around that so that you are happy? This life is too short to not be happy on a regular basis. And not to say that we're always going to be happy and that you shouldn't feel other things, but a constant state of happiness or neutrality should be your base level, versus being in this constant woe is me, or this sucks, or I hate this. If you hate being somewhere for a majority of your day, like, that's majority of your life, that you are in a state of hate. I think I talked about this too a couple days ago. So starting to look at long term, what do you want to be doing that brings you joy, and then in turn brings joy to your family? Because if we're unhappy at our work and we come home and we tend to have that energy still lingering within us, your kids know that, your spouse or partner knows that, the people that you live with know that, it affects your family. So starting to look at how can we start, what actually brings us joy, and how can we incorporate that into our daily lives? And that's something that it's not going to happen overnight, and maybe that change won't happen overnight, but long-term project, it's a practice. It's, beginning to unfold these layers and beginning to create this life around that. So when we think of family first, I know that a lot of people say, like, well, I have a family to provide for, so I can't just up and leave my job. It's not just me, they rely on me. Okay, well, how can we chip away at that and start to make that transition? If you don't leave your job now, that's okay, but how can we start to make that change? Maybe it's a side hustle and there's something that you want to create and share with the world. And so you dedicate 2-3 hours, maybe at first just a week, or then it becomes 2 to 3 hours a day, or an hour a day, depending on what it is. But it's first discovering what that is for you, and then starting to integrate that into your life to then be a little bit more happy each day or each week. And then it's just a progress, and for the betterment of yourself, and then again for the people around you. So, yeah. And then lastly, the starfish. Oh, I didn't show you the beaver. That was the beaver. And then the starfish. The starfish says, beautiful, alluring, superficial, or shallow. The starfish is a natural and exquisite beauty, mesmerizing to all. Being around someone with starfish energy is a thrill, like you've been put under a spell of divinity itself. The problem is, these creatures have been reliant on how they look and what other people think of them for so long they may have forgotten their deeper callings. When this card appears, it's important to ask, am I being swayed by outward appearances? What dreams have I put aside to please others? When in balance, uplifting, artistic, expressive. When out of balance, gossips, feels empty. To bring into balance, positive friends. And this goes back to the other two cards. Are you doing things for yourself because they bring you joy, or are you doing them because it's expected of you from the people around you? You know, did you get into a job because it's what your parents wanted you to do, but really, like, maybe you became a nurse and you never really wanted to be a nurse, but everybody in your family told you to be a nurse, but really you wanted to be a dancer, but everyone said, how can you survive being a dancer? How do you bring dance back into your life? Maybe you do like being a nurse, but it's not your favorite, but you don't dance anymore. How can you start bringing that love back into your life so that it fulfills you and not just those who rely on you or those who have expectations for you? So beginning to look at what's underneath versus what's on the outside. How do I really feel versus what I'm putting on as a mask, or how I'm showing up. What's really important to you? Are you doing things because it looks good to everyone else, but it doesn't really make you happy? Or are you doing things because it's what you should do? It's what society tells you to do. But you don't feel that way. And maybe you feel ashamed that you feel differently. There's no need to feel shame. And let's start unpacking maybe why you do. So there's lots of layers to uncover here, and there's so much space and time to do so. And it's a safe space to do so. You're allowed to feel pleasure in your life. You're allowed to be happy. You're allowed to do things that bring you joy and still provide and be a part of a family or community. But those that might bring you down are only doing so because they're unhappy. And if you're living in your truth and they're not, then they'll try to bring you back down because, what's the quote? Essentially, loathing loves company, or pain loves company, or something like that. But essentially, like, if someone is unhappy and unaware, they'll want others around them to be unhappy. Oh, misery loves company, because you can all just be unhappy together and gossip and rant and rah, 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 like the world is against us. But the world isn't against you. If anything, the world provides for you. There's trees just giving you oxygen to breathe. The waters just flow for us to drink and swim and bask in. The moon provides energy. The sun gives us vitamin D and provides energy. The earth, we put our feet on it, it's giving us negative ions. Like, there's so much provided for us for free. It's working for us. This time right now, it's working for us so that we can survive, and to remind us we can't keep going the rate that we were going. If we don't change, things will just get worse for us. The earth will survive, she always does, but we won't. So it's time to make a change. It's time to create change in our mindset and in our lives, and for a more beautiful, loving, sustainable future. I know that a lot of the stuff that I said can feel dark and heavy and scary, but it's the only way through. It's to go through that to get to the other side of a newfound bliss. The last card is the subconscious card, which is on the bottom of the deck. It's the oyster. So as I tell my clients, we operate in the subconscious. 85% of our decisions are our decisions are made by 85% of our brain capacity. The subconscious is 85%. The conscious is 15%. We operate majority of what we do from that 85%, and only operate within 15% of consciously. So things that have happened to us in the past that were either resolved or unresolved are what's controlling why we do things, maybe without thinking, or sometimes even with thinking. So the oyster is how our subconscious is feeling right now. And that says, patient, secret keeper, hiding inner treasures. The focus and determination of the oyster is unmatched. Anything an oyster personality puts their mind to, they achieve with grace and charm. The only problem is, oyster types often take their inner gifts for granted. They become shy or doubtful, and this can lead to withdrawing or protecting their deepest desires in life's work. When the oyster card appears, it's important to reveal your inner treasures. What is it that you've been hesitant to share? The world is waiting to see. When in balance, feels blessed, generous, masterful. When out of balance, reluctant, gripping, clams up. To bring into balance, share something. There are around 7 billion people on this planet. It took 2 of those 7 billion to create you. So in that capacity, you are a 1 in, 3.5 billion chance. But even in that, there are 2.5 million sperm that are released and 1 egg. And it takes 1 sperm to meet that 1 egg to then create you. So if you take 3.5 billion times 2.5 million, you are 1 in that number chance in being here. You have better odds at winning the lottery than it is for you to be here on this planet. You are no mistake. You matter. You are uniquely you. There is no one else in the world that is like you, that has your genetic makeup, that has your experiences and your perspective of the world from what you uniquely have gone through. Nobody sees the world as you do. Nobody is you. So you uniquely have talents and gifts, or a tool bag essentially of gifts to share, these inner treasures. There's something for you to share with this world that only you can share. And so again, this time is a beautiful space to seek or discover what that is. And in looking at the other 3 cards and doing that work, you'll uncover what that gift is. And the subconscious will come into the conscious. This is a really exciting time. And I want to acknowledge and pay honor and respect to the fact that there are people who are hurt and scared and sick and dying, and people who are working tireless hours to keep people alive, to keep people healthy, to keep people safe. And I thank you, and I honor and respect you, and I am sending nothing but love and light and prayers to you. But for those of you who have the space and the capacity to take the step back, to look at your life and re-examine it, and re-examine who you are and how you show up in the world, it's time to do that. So, sending much love and many blessings to all beings. We'll get through this together. We'll get through this together. I see you. I thank you. I love you.